RJ Julia Booksellers is one of the nation's leading independent bookstores, and its owner knows a thing or two about a great book when she reads one.
Joining us this morning with her list of gift-worthy political books, Roxanne Coady. Miss Coady, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's nice to see both of you.
Thank you. Let's start off. We have your list in front of us. Start off telling us about The Luckiest Man by Mark Salter.
So The Luckiest, Mark Salter's a friend, so you should know that I'm biased. But he was McCain's chief of staff, the co-author of all the books that John McCain had done. And John Meacham says that Franklin Roosevelt had Lewis Hyde and John F. Kennedy had Arthur Schlesinger and John McCain had Mark Salter. So when you read this book, Mark's an incredible storyteller. But when you think of the arc of John McCain's life as a military man, a multi-generational military man, his political career, his run for the presidency, you're reminded of the fact that politicians can be honorable, that there is an integrity and a commitment to public service, and the notion that it's a higher order than yourself. And so it was, it's great if you like history, politics, memoirs, but it was, to me, when I tried to pick out the books that we're going to talk about, I wanted to think about of what can be right and what can be good, because we've been so mired in what's wrong.
And that leads us to your next choice, which is
accomplishes that in spades.
That leads us to your next choice, which is The Hardest Job in the World, The American Presidency by John Dickerson, excuse me.
Right. So John Dickerson wrote a piece in Atlantic magazine early in Trump's presidency to talk about what did the founding fathers envision as the job of the presidency. And it was a much smaller job. It was much smaller. And its role in the three legs of our democracy, the judicial, the legislative, was more proportionate. And what we've learned during the Trump presidency is what we thought was law was in fact custom, not law. And so what John Dickerson does brilliantly is take you through this whole arc of what the president's responsible for. And can this really be one person? Do there need to be changes in terms of what the president can and can't do and their role for modern times?
Interesting. Next, Ezra Klein's book, Why We're Polarized.
Yeah, so Ezra Klein, who's the founder of Vox, and he's a very young man who is known for taking complicated facts and digesting them in a way that we can understand. And what he does is, in this Why We Are Polarized, it's the one book that might be a little bit depressing because he doesn't have an answer. But he talks about that there used to be a difference between how we might have voted on the legislative side and the presidential side, that the alignment 30 or 40 years ago was like 50%. It's now 97. And what we've done is create this little orbit where we have mega identities. And it's not so much that we are for a party, it is how we are anti another party, and we're voting against something. And then the media and the loop intensifies it. And we all know it's a horrible problem. Ezra Klein doesn't come up with a solution. But I think in order to come up with a solution and think about it, we need to understand what's been feeding it.
Yes. It's really the end of the ticket splitter is summarized in that book.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Kevin.
You have the 4-part so far biography of Lyndon Johnson by Robert Caro, magisterial selections, any one of which can stand alone.
Boy, that's a pandemic project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what is striking to me about bringing up. There have been a lot of memoirs and a lot of biographies of politicians. But I think about this. Katharine Graham, who, as I'm sure you and your listeners know, ran the Washington Post. She did an event for us when her book, Personal History, came out. And I was sitting with her at lunch, and I said, Ms. Graham, you've seen everybody from Franklin Roosevelt forward. Who do you think is the best politician you've ever known? And she didn't miss a beat, and she said, hands down, Lyndon Johnson. If the definition of a politician is somebody who knows how to get policy passed and implemented, it would be Lyndon Johnson. And Robert Caro's first book takes us from the beginning of his life to his 1941 defeat as a senator. And then at the end of the 4 books, we're at the time that he is president. It is the most brilliant coverage of, almost 30 years of our political life that teaches us about everything that can be.
For purposes of time, I'm going to just show the next 2 books that you recommend, the Federalist Papers. We could talk about that for a few days. You also mentioned Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents, is Isabel Wilkerson, who somehow makes serious social science into bestsellers. She's amazing. But can you just give us 30 seconds on Barack Obama's book?
Yeah, so I think that, he wrote the book himself. He is a cerebral, thoughtful man. And the reviews of this have said this is one of the finest presidential memoirs that has ever been written. It's a doorstopper. So you're going to have to spend the time to read it. But, he is a gifted writer, and his story and his time in the presidency is precedent setting.
Roxanne Coady, thank you so much. Head to RJ Julia Bookstores in either Middletown or Madison. And thank you for your recommendations. We really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Be well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Same to you. Thank you very much. Do you have a favorite political book? Head to our Face the State Facebook page to let us know what it is. Search for Face the State CT. Kevin, favorite?
My favorite, Doobie, you will not be surprised to learn, Margaret Thatcher by Charles Moore. It is all about ideas and action, married to an iron lady.
And mine is, I'm going back to high school, All the King's Men, Robert Penn Warren, one of the great, great political books.
And movies.
Yes, exactly.
That's it for this edition of Face the State. Coming up, CBS Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley.
Join us next Sunday when we will invite more guests to Face the State.